Petrified Forest National Park. Here we go. There's my vehicle. Petrified Forest National Park stretches north and south between Interstate 40 and Highway 180. The drive is 28 miles long, and there are two entrances to the park, with each one having a visitor center. Okay, here we are in the Painted Desert. 7,500 square miles. That's how big the Painted Desert is. It's made of mudstones and sandstones. This is called the Chinle Formation. Deposited 227 to 205 million years ago during the late Triassic period. During that time, the supercontinent Pangaea, which was down near the equator, broke apart, forming our continents. Over 180 million years ago, the rocks of the Chinle were deeply buried, uplifted, and eroded into bed topography you see today. 20 million years later, of late Jurassic rock and fossil history are recorded in these rocks. It's a nippy morning. It was 20 degrees. But we got blue sky. So, no complaints. Okay, that's pretty cool. That black over there is basalt. And it forms the rim of this plateau. And it was deposited by local volcanoes between 16 and 5 million years ago. And it forms a protective cap over the land here to the left. Where the basalt has been eroded away, the softer Chinle Formation is exposed, and you can see the erosion is much more rapid. Another cool fact, the spot or the place where the basalt and the Chinle Formation meet, that thin line represents a gap in the physical rock record called an unconformity. Geologists believe that there are more than 1,000 feet of missing rock layers that were deposited and then eroded away over the 200 million years before that lava flow came. So the Chinle layer and layers above it were deposited and then eroded away, and then the eruption happened and they were covered with the basalt. So A lot of time. From this vantage point, you can get the feel for the vastness of the park. What did they say? 75,000 square miles? Man. Because of the clearness of the air in this area, you can see mountains 100 miles away. Those are the white of the San Francisco peaks, all the way over to Flagstaff. Then these are the Hopi Buttes, there in the distance. That rock there is called Pilot Rock. It's 6,234 feet high, 6 miles away. Then there's the Chinle Mesa. Here's another closer view of that basalt volcanic rock cap of the area. Well, the history of the rocks is pretty cool. The lives of the residents is also pretty amazing. They have evidence of the Paleo Indians were here 13,500 to 6,000 BC. They even found a petrified wood spear point from that time period. Then you have the Archaic period. That's from 6,000 to 600 BC. Then the basket makers were from 500 BC to 650 AD. CE now. Then the Pueblo came. Pueblo 1 were 650 to 950 CE. Pueblo 2, 950 to 1300. And the Pueblo 4 were 1300 to 1540. So, a long history of habitation. And it's amazing that people could make a living and survive in this kind of topography. But they did, and still do. Route 66 used to go right through here. It followed those telephone poles you can see. Go right down the line there. But right over here now is US 40 interstate. 75 miles per hour speed limit. a little faster than what it used to be. But historic Route 66. Not sure the make or model of this vehicle, but it's seen better days. This chart outlines the peoples that lived in Petrified National Park for the past 13,000 years. From the hunters of the last ice age, to ancestral Puebloan farmers, to historic ranchers, the park was occupied nearly continuously. This amazing time depth of human occupation has resulted in over 1,000 known archaeological sites in the park. Puerto Pueblo had over 100 rooms at one time. There's evidence that there's been habitation in this area for over 13,000 years. 1,000. Wow. There's a, quote, river near here, so there was a water source. Numerous petroglyphs are found in the area. This particular petroglyph is believed to be the migration symbol. Here's a really cool petroglyph. Again, that's an example of a petroglyph. And again, what the native peoples did, they went to an area where that black coating of desert varnish, it's called. It's a thin layer of dark material, so they would take something and peck away the outer surface and expose the rock underneath. So that's a petroglyph. A pictograph is a painting on a rock, so that's a different process. This is more lasting. Here are a few more petroglyphs. That kind of looks like a foot. That's a nice one. Again, what all these things mean, they obviously have difficulty, but they talk to local Indian historians and they give insight into what some of these petroglyphs mean. There's the traditional kiva. See those at Mesa Verde, but they're generally used for ceremonial uses. They usually had a flat roof on them and a ventilation system where they had a small fire in there and a way of expelling the smoke. But it's called a kiva. The buildings were usually above ground where they lived. Okay, I'm at newspaper rock. They don't let you get very close, but I'll see how the old zoom is working in the shade down here. Lots and lots of petroglyphs. This is the Blue Mesa member of the Chinle Formation. I'll get that straight. These lands were deposited in a vast tropical river system that flowed through this area during the late Triassic period, similar to the Amazon River basin today. 225 million years ago. Near the top there, the bloody brown and yellow sandstone layers were deposited in the river channel, showing where the river flowed at one time. Then the blue and red mudstone layers would lay down in a river's floodplain. Then we had a layer of white. The white ash layers recorded volcanic eruptions. This chart shows that the Blue Mesa member is 14 million years older than the Petrified Forest member. They are all part of the Chinle Formation. Well, we're in the Blue Mesa area. And it's the first petrified wood that I've come across. I think that this is going to warrant a hike. And this is sandstone. You can see the pebbles that are included in the sandstone. That's usually indicative of sandstone that was formed by water, flowing water, as opposed to wind, sand dunes type of sandstone. You can see here is an area of larger pebbles, so that there may have been a flood at that point. The larger rocks were transported down and laid down and vitrified. It's called vitrification, turning into rock. Okay, beginning the Blue Mesa Trail. That's pretty cool. These are a conglomerate. You can tell they were in the river bottom by seeing how they're all rounded. So that's a sign that they've been tumbled in a river. And then as they were pressed into sandstone, here we are. And then during this period, less rapid flowing water, so you had just a small grains of sand. So that's a conglomerate. Ah, looky here. Cracking the conglomerate code. I see lichen. Man, there's some serious conglomerates. Never seen anything quite like that. And again, the thing about that is a particularly hard rock, so it acts almost like a cap rock, so that it reduces erosion. So the areas where the conglomerate is gone, like down here, it erodes away much faster. And one of the reasons that you see this high energy water flow is that volcanoes and the uplifting of mountains not too far away caused more potential energy for the water to run downhill at higher speeds, so it could carry rocks like this greater distances. This park was developed, trails and things, during Theodore Roosevelt's time as president, by making the CCC, where they took young men, hired them, this was during the Depression, to learn skills and to provide money that they could send back to their families. But a lot of work in the national parks was done in that time. So, really nice. And you can see here, as opposed to those conglomerate round pebbles, this is like a mudstone that you could hardly call a stone. It's like mud. So easily eroded. Petrified logs. That mudstone is almost purplish. These bluish banded hills have a fair amount of manganese, which helps to stain them. Some petrified wood. Wow. A sunny day. Some petrified rock or petrified wood made of silica that replaced the cell structure of the old tree. Those are striking bands. Here's a cool one. A petrified log. Everything around it is eroded away. And there it is on its little pedestal. Pretty cool. Wow. This is pretty amazing. When I was here years ago with Sherry, we didn't have time to take these hikes, so we didn't get to see down inside. climb to the top. A bench. Yes. Well, the altitude is 5,594 feet. It's not like the 12,000 feet I was hiking in last summer in Rocky Mountain National Park, but still, when you're going uphill, your lungs can tell. This is Agate Bridge, petrified log that has been undermined by water erosion. 1917, they put that concrete support underneath it. It's worked so far, but time will tell how long it lasts. And again, that tree fell over 217 million years ago. Wow. You can see the internal structure is much prettier. Like crystals of agate. This is Jasper Forest, one of the most densely concentrated areas of petrified rock or petrified wood in the world. All those reddish chunks down there are all petrified wood. Mr. Raven. What are you doing? You're having an attack? Here's a cool specimen. And again, the way this works, the tree is buried in an area with a lot of fairly fast-flowing rivers. So they wash into the river, get buried by sediments, which deprives them of oxygen so that trees don't rot. Instead, they lay in there in the sediment. And then what happened in this area, there was volcanic activity that put layer upon layer of ash, which is high in silica. So over time, water leached through the ash, dissolved silica crystals, S2O. They percolated down and infiltrated the cell structure of the tree. They made this formation. This material is almost pure silica. You can even see the tree rings. And of course, the bark is really the thing that's noticeable. That silica has different names. In some places it's called jasper or chert, it can even be flint, depending on its purity and hardness. But because it's so hard, the native peoples use the material to make arrowheads and instruments to work with. So, wow. You can see this is more of a blackish chert. This is Crystal Forest. Just look at all the petrified wood. It's amazing. These are pretty impressive sized logs here. Boy, you can see the thick bark that they had. Again, these were all conifers. Back then there were no flowers, no flowering trees or flowering bushes or flowers. Just conifers. And ferns, that type of plant. Pretty desolate. Pretty lonely out here. There's a petrified log on its little pedestal. Once that erodes away a little bit more, it'll be tumbling downhill. Just a matter of time. Here is a long log. And it snapped off and fell that way. This is really cool. This looks so much like the natural tree would. You can see where branches came off, not holes in the wood. Wow. I understand when the native peoples used this material, chert, which is almost pure silica, very hard, for weapons. Making them into weapons is called knapping. Anyway, apparently the color of the material doesn't really matter. However, the natives sometimes used different patterns in the wood to make beautiful art. So it was more than just a utilitarian instrument. It was a piece of work, a piece of art. You can see this is inside of the wood where it actually had rotted. So now that's also petrified or lithified. Probably can't see on camera, but it has a tiny sparkle to it from the silica. Tiny, tiny grains of silica. To give you a little feel for the hardness, here's a little piece of chert. Can you hear that when you drop it on there? It is hard material. And it shaves off in colloidal fractures, which allows for the knapping. They can make sharp points for several different instruments. In these rocks, you can particularly see the growth rings. Everything is preserved. There's one down here, and you can see the growth rings. This tree had a rotten center, and that's duplicated. Just an amazing thing. This chart shows how mineral impurities in the quartz give it different colors. Iron oxides produce reds and yellows, oranges and purples. Manganese oxides are black and gray, and pure quartz is white or clear. Man, looks like it wasn't too hospitable of a spot to go for a little swim. guy could put a hurt to you.